police just released more tear gas about 20 minutes ago. Go ahead and take a look at the crowd. The residents have started a makeshift memorial here at the Vallejo Police Department. You can see they've left flowers, lit candles. Last night, the city administrator's office gave these protesters a list of ground rules. The crime tape is still up. Investigators still out here. Many were wondering where the mayor was tonight. A city staffer was sitting in her seat. The protesters are not ready to give up yet, despite the fact that police just released more tear gas about 20 minutes ago. Go ahead and take a look at the crowd. There are still several protesters out here. Go ahead and take a look at this arrest video. OPD says so far there have been 102 arrests, 97 this morning and 5 this evening, but that number is expected to go up. There are 16 different law enforcement agencies out here helping OPD. Interim Police Chief Howard Jordan says they had to use tear gas in order to protect the police officers out here.
In a position.
He said there were also sexual assaults that authorities are investigating that happened inside the encampment, and authorities say they will be out here as long as these protesters refuse to give up. Live in Oakland, Reggie Kumar, KRON 4 News. That is correct, Pam. All the protesters left the Port of Oakland about an hour ago. Officials here say the next shift starts at 3 a.m. At 4:15 p.m., critical mass started arriving at the Port of Oakland. 10 minutes later, at 4:25 p.m., several buses filled with more protesters joined the crowds. About 5 p.m., thousands more marched from downtown to Middle Harbor Road holding Occupy Oakland signs. At 5:15 p.m., officials shut down APL terminal operations at the port as occupiers continue to march on Middle Harbor Road and block the gates to the port's 7 terminals. At 7 p.m., several hundred longshoremen could not go to the port because protesters blocked the roads and entrances.
We have made a statement not only to the nation but to the world that it's time to stop this, the way things are going, turn it around, completely look at how we're going to do it. And for one thing, we need to bail out the schools instead of the banks.
If we could shut down businesses, if we could stop the banks, and if we can get the international longshoremen to not import or export for one day, I think that's a great message.
Truck drivers were also stopped in their tracks. They could not enter or leave the port as protesters continued filling the street. Some even climbed on top the big rigs.
We have been waiting here for about 3 hours. I'm actually getting more money, because they're paying me for the waiting time and everything, so there's no problem for me.
And it's still not known when the port will reopen. Live in Oakland, Reggie Kumar, KRON 4 News.
Reggie Kumar talked to the park ranger who saved the man's life in our top story at 11.
East Bay Park Ranger Dave Flores says he doesn't consider himself a hero. He tells me he was just doing his job. But if Flores never spotted this car along Grizzly Peak Boulevard in the Oakland Hills, the driver, James Wright, may have never been rescued. Ranger Flores explains how he made the life-saving discovery.
Driving back up after a regular park cleanup on Grizzly Peak, I was actually sitting in the passenger seat, so it gave me the time to look around as we drove up, and I saw the shimmering light from the sun off the roof of the car kind of gave it away. Had I been driving, I wouldn't have seen it. I scrambled down the steep ravine and saw there was someone in the car, and I went closer and opened the door. There was a guy in it who was conscious.
The accident happened right here. Wright's car plunged 150 feet down this embankment. Before emergency responders put Wright into the ambulance, you can see they took off his shoes and left him here alongside the road.
He seemed okay, no obvious injuries. I asked him if anything hurt anywhere. He said, no, I'm just really thirsty.
That's because Wright told Ranger Flores he didn't have any food or water for 3 days while he was stuck in the car. The El Cerrito man also told Ranger Flores he was in and out of consciousness after having a medical incident while driving. Wright was taken to Highland Hospital and is expected to survive. Ranger Flores says whenever they find cars that have driven off this dangerous 2-lane road, the outcome is usually much different.
When we find them, it usually happens at night. So the next morning when we see him, the person's already been rescued or has crawled. Often the person crawls up and gets help. I'm so happy that, he's okay, and he's gonna see his wife, or if he hasn't already. Happy ending.
Wright didn't have a cell phone on him at the time, but park officials say even if he did, cell phone reception isn't very good along this stretch of road. In the Oakland Hills, Reggie Kumar, KRON 4 News.
Today, the San Francisco protest was on the move when police tried to corral the protesters. Things got a little heated. One officer was slashed by a female protester with a razor blade. Police are looking for the suspect. Another officer was hit in the face. Both officers were treated for their injuries. In Oakland, it was a bit calmer for now, though it may heat up as protesters are being evicted. KRON 4's Dahlin has details on the city's plan to kick out the Occupy encampment. Penn State has lost its final home game of the season against Nebraska. It's the first time college football legend Joe Paterno was not coaching since Harry Truman was president. Paterno was fired earlier this week as details emerged in the child sex abuse scandal. Former assistant coach Mike Sandusky is now behind bars, charged with molesting young boys. Last night, a candlelight vigil was held for the victims of sexual abuse. And today, as fans tailgated for the game, some students spoke out. Barbara Hall takes a look at how the university is trying to move forward. A gas line in Richmond is patched up and working again after it ruptured this morning. The line at South 49th Street and Wall Avenue was damaged by a private contractor at about 10:30 a.m. Richmond police ordered an evacuation in the area. 2 hours later, it was lifted after PG&E fixed the pipe. Union City Police are searching for someone who hit a bicyclist, then took off. Police say the person was riding the bike about 4:45 this morning at Mission Boulevard and Dakota Road when the collision occurred. Police tell us the bicyclist has life-threatening injuries. There is no description of the hit-and-run suspect. But their injuries are not considered life-threatening. Okay, Robin, you got to take a look at this. A big day for the Bay Bridge. Look at this old school video. It turned 75 years old. The chain cutting ceremony by President Herbert Hoover marked the bridge's grand opening on November 12, 1936, when the bridge first opened. The lower deck was reserved for trucks and trains. The toll price, get this, on opening day, just 65 cents.
Wow.
And here's a live look at the western span of the bridge tonight. The 75th anniversary is being marked with a 30,000 LED lights display. And so the weather for later on this week, it's going to be a little rainy, right?
Yes.
And Robin, Stanford did lose their first game of the season to Oregon. Yes, I know. I have nothing to say about that. 3 new films made the top 3 at the box office this weekend. We'll take a look at the movies and how much they made.